First and foremost, there's no question that actually identity is going to power the ad business and marketing, however you want to define it. Like, identity is the underpinning of future success without any question. And listen, what Google and Facebook did an amazing job in, as you just highlighted, is the fact that they were really early to understanding that power, and they had some unique assets and capabilities that enabled it, but they did an amazing job showing the marketing community, the advertisers, the brands, what kind of performance you can get when you can really get granular and targeting and measurement. Listen, what happened over time though is that gap between those two guys and everyone else is finally shrinking, right? So they really lapped the industry in understanding the power of identity, but the big media companies are coming quickly, and inclusive of all the big TV guys, right? And the more broadly defined business of television. So listen, I think what's the opportunity? The opportunity is really to create across any medium you're talking about, to have much more finite segments and measurement, to know much more about actually who you're reaching, to be able to tie that back in more granular ways to actually business outcomes. And you're going to have this whole more sophisticated level of targeting and measurement that the industry on the more traditional media side couldn't have before. Now again, I think one of the risks is that a lot of those that come from digital think, well, that means we're headed to just a one-to-one marketing world. I think we got to back up from that. What we're really doing is talking about the integration of mass reach with kind of sophistication of measurement, targeting, and ultimately relevance. And so the opportunity is an ecosystem that can come to a brand and say, I can, with good precision, create more granular segmentation strategies, reach people across different platforms and screens, give you a sense of really what's happening with your ad dollars at a level that wasn't possible 5 or 10 years ago. For many years, everyone's talked about being screen agnostic, but the industry wasn't truly screen agnostic. I would say at this point it is pretty true that people and the programmers are pretty indifferent to where their content runs. And so for them, listen, all the digital distribution points of their content mean that built into that ecosystem is the power of identity, their potential of identity anyway, if they stitch together the right data. So for them, just the ability to play in that same landscape of where Google and Facebook have played for years is a huge opportunity. And you'll do that with the size and scale they have, and connected to this massive world of, quote, linear television, which, by the way, is still really big and still a lot of money and still has a lot of value. Those two things combined, I think, are huge, right? So for them, I think I'm very bullish on what a lot of these big media companies are capable of doing. Now, many of them are still only walking the path to get there, but there's a lot of potential. In terms of the buyers, listen, I think it's the same evolution we've been seeing, which is a continued desire to get smarter about creating segments that move past, basic age, sex demographics, which in the digital world, listen, there's not news there. That's happened. In the television world, that's clearly been changing over the last several years, and I think changed more than people give it credit. I think what we'll see is actually a blending of the two worlds again on the buy side that begins to appreciate we shouldn't be headed to a one-to-one world. That's not the end-all be-all for all dollars. Sure, plenty of places where that makes sense, but I think what buyers are beginning to get smarter about is recognizing the value of the continuum of, hey, at some times I'm going to have a little less targeting, but I'm going to have much better scale, and at sometimes I'm going to have real finite targeting, but a lot less scale. And if I can marry those things together and I can understand that I'm reaching that same customer in multiple places, now I'm actually getting to that omni-channel marketing I really talk about and want to execute, and I think we're getting pretty close. I mean, I think it's possible today in pockets, and I think marketers are getting smart enough to be able to start to take advantage of it. What's fascinating is actually these new sources of data we references are actually the old sources of data, and the digital business is just finally getting accustomed to understanding the power. What we've really seen in the initial wave of digital media using a lot of kind of what I would call attribute flags of different digital behavior was just actually not very interesting data. There was very little signal, very little predictive power of that type of information. Commerce data and actual offline behavior data, consumption data, whether it's again shopping or content or otherwise, actually is really, really interesting. Like, that's the data which the market's finally realizing that has a lot of value. Now, what's the potential is stitching this together around the concept of, certainly at a conference like this, it's all about identity. The trick, of course, is to actually understand identity with sophistication. And it's not just about onboarding and kind of bringing and matching data and device graphs. I'm not anti any of that stuff. That's all a good input to the equation. But what's necessary is what I think is the more advanced discussion of identity resolution, to really be able to understand that I am a single person across my various devices, across my various touch points and cookies, etc. And by the way, the hardest part, which few have really solved and probably no one's solved yet at scale, is how do you match me back to my household? Because so much of the content that I consume, whether it be via traditional linear television or connected TV devices, you know it's my household, you don't necessarily know it's me. And so that's where I think the next wave, right? Listen, we'll keep talking about matching and onboarding and there's value, but I think what we'll really start to talk about is the applications built on top of a sophisticated identity resolution system. That's what I think is much more interesting.